catching exceptions, and we're down here at Connective DX in downtown Boston. Tonight, Pete Navarre is going to be showing us about EXM. Let's get in there and check it out. Pete, thanks for having me here, man.
Yeah, thanks for coming on such short notice.
Yeah, today's kind of a wash, but we're here at the user group here at Connective.
Yeah.
So you're presenting on EXM?
For the last 2 or 3 years, I've been working with EXM pretty heavily, Email Experience Manager and Sitecore. With the release of Sitecore 901, they brought EXM into the native platform. It was a time to start really talking about EXM and getting people on board with using it, because now that it's no longer a module, it's actually way easier to implement, way easier to set up, and hey, it actually works.
So the earlier version, it was a completely different way to deal with it altogether.
You know, the product itself has gone through many iterations. You know, way back around 2011, 2012, it was called Email Campaign Manager. And when that was written, it was really written outside of Sitecore. It was kind of written on the side of Sitecore, so there was some integration, but there wasn't a lot of integration. When you start looking at implementations and you start realizing that, hey, I've got this complicated module that has its own 4 different server roles that have to like configure config files and make sure my deployment plans are sending the right config files to the right server, it just doesn't work very well unless you know what you're doing.
As a person who's built a handful of modules, I can say how hard it is. It's a choice, right? You realize that the APIs might change, so you try to limit your exposure.
So imagine managing a module that is using almost every aspect of Sitecore's API.
So tell me, what is the biggest pain points that are fixed now, that people are, this is the reason you've got to get it now?
The biggest pain point was actually List Manager. And when you start looking at the release notes for Sitecore 8.2, especially Sitecore 8.2 Update 2, you find that there was a huge List Manager update. And a lot of that was because you had list locking issues, you had contact locking issues, you had issues that were not necessarily related to EXM, but because they were only really used by EXM, it made EXM kind of look like it wasn't working correctly.
Now, I know you've played with this a lot, and you had some benchmarks that you were working on.
The impressive numbers, the question that was lingering, the question that I was given was, can we send 4 million emails in a day? When in some of the setups I was seeing, we were having trouble sending 150,000 emails in 3 hours. How do you scale to 4 million? We were successfully able to send 540,000 emails in 20 minutes. And that was with a significant increase in some of the threads that we were using. We were also only using 2 dispatch servers that had 8 cores and 16 gigs of RAM, as well as a CM server that was doing some of the dispatching, but not as much, because we didn't want to impact the CM server too much. To be able to scale to that, definitely we can send 4 million emails in a day.
So who do you think this is really targeted for?
The fanboy in me says, I hope everybody. But the reality is, I think mid-market companies that are looking to enter in email marketing and have medium-sized, and that's probably, I want to say, 100 to 200,000 contacts, maybe even into the 1 million contact range. I think they'll be able to use EXM, especially in 901, fast and with minimal problems. The key there being, you know, work with a trusted partner, work with somebody who's got the EXM experience, and try to get to Sitecore 9 as fast as you can.
What's the one thing that you want everybody to know?
You know, the one thing I want everybody to know is EXM is actually a viable product. When you look at the 3, for me, there's really 3 use cases that EXM provides. It's the mass email distribution, it's the triggered / automated email, and then it's the subscription management. What Sitecore's EXM does really well is the mass distribution, and it has actually always done that. Scales incredibly well, and so you know the fact that that I can send 540,000 emails in 20 minutes, which, by the way, was actually more than even the product developers thought that it could do in 20 minutes, says to me that there's something there.
All right. I can't wait to see you talk.
Great.
All right. Thanks, Pete.
Thanks, Mark.